And hello, I am your host, Valerie Lasfardi. I am a bikini pro and I am getting ready to step on stage at Janet Leug's Battle of the Bodies this weekend. So, in about 7 days, really excited. So, I'm in my peak week. If you're not familiar with the term peak week when it comes to competition prep and things like that, peak week is simply the week before you compete. And sometimes people look at peak week as this magical situation where all this crazy transformation happens and you become stage ready. But let me let you in on a little secret. That's not true. The work is done before peak week. If you are not ready by the time peak week arrives, you should probably push your show out. Like if you are going into a show with the idea of like you want to do well, you want to bring your all-time best package, well, clearly if you are not ready a week before the show, you're definitely not going to bring your all-time best package. So, the cool thing about competing is there are shows happening all the time. If you're a amateur competitor competing in the NPC division, or perhaps you compete in other federations, WMBF, OCB, something like that. But I tend to talk more along the lines of the NPC and the IFBB because that is the federation that I'm in. But especially with the NPC. So if you're an amateur, there are shows all over the place, all the time. Yes, that would probably require you to travel. Now, unless you're in Florida, okay, there's something about Florida and shows in Florida. There are so many. In my last 3 years of competing, I have done every show but one in Florida. So I did in 2023, I did the Hurricane Pro, which was in Tampa. I can't think of the little spot off of Tampa, like an islandish type of thing that it was. It was there. So Hurricane Pro. And then I've done Atlantic Coast Pro, which is in Fort Lauderdale. I did that again last year. I'm trying to think what other show I did last year. Oh, Battle of the Bay, and that was in Sacramento. And then just recently, I did the Florida State Pro, which was in a little city outside of Orlando. And now I am doing the Battle of the Bodies, which is in Fort Lauderdale. So, you guys, there are a ton of NPC shows and IFBB Pro shows in Florida. But with that said, they're all over the world. But there are a ton just here within the United States. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and in Utah there's only one pro show that we have here. And it's in April. It is called the Wasatch Warrior, and I have competed in that show over the years. It used to be called Salt City Showdown when it first started, and it's run by my dear friend Robin Maher. She is the promoter of the show and she does a phenomenal job. And so I competed there as an amateur, and then I did my pro debut in 2019 at that show. And since then, I have helped. I have mostly I'm out doing tickets and helping with getting people seated and stuff like that. So I love to support the show in all the ways that I can. There was a couple years I did some like the trophies. So I typically don't hand out the trophies, but I will be backstage giving the medals to the trophy girls, like Sarah and Diamond, and I'm just behind the curtain, which is also really fun too. So anyway, but yeah, then there's 4 other NPC only shows in Utah. But Wasatch Warrior, it's a it's a pro show and an amateur show combined. And so it's all about finding the shows that make sense for you based on if you're ready or not. And if you can travel to shows, then that's cool. But sometimes, like a lot of people, they just don't have that in their budget to be like, okay, I'm gonna up and leave my family for the weekend to like I live on the West Coast. I'm going to fly out to the East Coast to do a show. So I fully recognize that that is a luxury for me to be able to do that. And being an online fitness coach myself, I am definitely in this and living this all the time. Most of my clients are general population, however, but I do have a few contest prep athletes. And so, and I love it. You know, I am part of the industry as well. And so I will go to where makes the most sense for me based on when I am ready. So that is one thing I want to really drive home for you guys, that peak week is not the time for magic to happen. So what are some common misconceptions with peak week? Well, people think like, okay, here we go. Now my coach is going to tell me to, she's going to give me this big protocol, tell me to, you know, maybe change up my training. No, you don't want to change up your training. You don't want to introduce like a brand new stimulus and go like balls to the wall with training stimulus. You don't want to mess your physique up. It's like, okay, now my coach is going to have me do a ton of cardio. E. Do you really think that if you did a bunch of cardio over the next like 6 days, that that is going to help you to get a really good and tight and recovered and all-time best physique? No, you're probably going to be worn down and exhausted, depending on if you're like pushing intensity. Like it could cause inflammation, it could make it hard for you to sleep, it can make you bloated. Like there's all these things. So it's like, no, you don't want to do that in peak week. Then sometimes you'll see these protocols, and you guys, I have done some of these protocols with the nutrition back in the day, where it's like, all right, whatever you've been doing, don't eat that food anymore. Now you're focused on X amount of like chicken only, so like a specific protein, or fish or whatever, and you're having 5 pieces of asparagus with every meal and rice. And I remember when I got this plan, oh, and it was too, like we started off with water. We'll get to the water in a sec. And I remember I got this plan, and I said to my coach at the time, so like Costco has really thick asparagus. Do you care if I eat the big asparagus, or do you want me to get like regular size? And his response, it doesn't matter. Just 5. And immediately when I got that response, I was like, what in the heck? Because 5 asparagus spears that are this thick are going to weigh a lot more than 5 asparagus spears that are like this. Like 5 little ones that are regular size is probably 1 Costco size spear. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. This is all hokey, but I'm going to do it because my coach wants me to do this. But that for me was kind of like the nail in the coffin with that coach, of just like, okay, yeah, this is not probably going to do much. And you know, they say asparagus, it's like a natural diuretic, so it makes you pee a little bit more and get a little bit more water weight out. But is that necessarily what you want to be doing in peak week 2? Do you want to be like dropping water weight? Like, are you watching your electrolytes, like your sodium balance, you know, things like that too? So I've done that before, where it was like these like very specific protocols of certain foods and how you had to do it. The other thing too that you'll sometimes see with peak week plans, where you're thinking the magic is going to happen, magic is water. So you may be like forced to drink 3 gallons or 4 gallons of water while you're doing this. And all that, like, sure, that's like helping you to just like clear everything out, but it's clearing out all your electrolytes too. And you need a healthy balance of your electrolytes and water. Otherwise you flatten out. And so it's like a ton of water, then you deplete the water, and then you barely have any water when it comes to show day. So there's all these like water manipulation variables too. Salt, like sodium intake, that's another thing, kind of along the lines of the electrolytes, of manipulating the sodium. And especially like I'm talking in the realm, I'm not like a bodybuilder, not like a male bodybuilder, right? I'm talking in the realm of like fit body competitors and bikini competitors. Like these are not protocols that need to happen in order to have a physique that is stage ready. Like I said, you need to know like weeks in advance, like a couple weeks in advance, if you like, you should be ready. Like you shouldn't be trying to get ready by running all these crazy protocols during that week leading up to the show. So let me tell you, like with all this stuff. So we've got like maybe people change their training, maybe people do something, add more cardio or push intensity more. Maybe you see these protocols where you're like doing water stuff, you're water loading, you're manipulating sodium. Maybe you are told to have 5 asparagus spears with every meal, like I did, and like different things. What happened for me? This is my personal experience. Is I didn't look better. Gratefully, I didn't look worse, but I've heard those stories time and time again of looking worse on show day because of these crazy things that have happened. I mean, people even like when you're depleting all your sodium and electrolytes, like you can get muscle cramps, you can get like heart spasms, like it's not good. Like there's bad things that can happen, especially if a coach tells you to take a diuretic, which I've never had a coach had me do that. And I don't, I would like to think that I would have said no. But I had plenty of friends who were taking diuretics and I never understood it either when I was watching. I was like, what is happening with this? Like I don't see what's happening, but I'm sure that there is. I'm sure that there was something going on, but yeah, so I never had to take a diuretic. I'd like to think that I would have said no to that too. But people can end up on show day looking worse than they started when they went through this magical peak week transformation. um, where they're doing all sorts of things to their body that they haven't ever tried at all up until show day or up until a few days before the show when it's like really matters on like making sure your physique is happy and you're not doing anything to wig stuff out, right? So yeah, I always did well in the um NPC. I would place in the top 5. I was one of those athletes that came up in bikini in 2016 to 2018 where I was competing with in Utah, like in the shows in Utah, I was competing with really, really good competitors who we all earned our pro cards at the same time. And I was always just like 1 or 2 spots below these girls in the local shows. And just my coach at the time was like, you're like, if you were anywhere else but Utah, like you would be winning, you would get the overall. So I never won a NPC show and I never got an overall. But my coach was like, we can take you, like you're ready for the national stage. And, it only took me 2 shows to get my pro card. So, looking back, was that the best route? Being where I'm really having to challenge myself and take time to build to become like get up to the requirements of the pro league. It's taken me years to get to where I am, and I wouldn't consider myself like I've made progress for me, but I'm not consistently in the first call outs. I've only been in first call outs and placed third once so far. And since then I've always placed like 11th, 13th, 14th, in the second or the third call out. So I'm not consistently placing up there, which these last couple weeks, it's been something that I've kind of got, been thinking about, like, was that good advice? I mean, I didn't know anything else at the time and I was listening to my coach and it just so happened that I did get my pro card and I've been in the pro league ever since 2018. That's how it worked out for me given the people that I was competing with and just the high level caliber athlete of the bikini competitors that were my friends all at the same time. Because like, I competed with my friend Griselle Blanche, and we were in the same or different height class, but we both got our pro cards at the same show, and she got the overall, and I was third in the overall. So it's like that. And the show before that I had done, my friend Sarah DeVore got her pro card, and then my friend Nicole Johnson got her pro card in the overall at the Universe. Like there was just a lot of like my friends, and we're all like in this circle like doing well, but they were just that much better than me. And I tangent again, I've found over the years, like, and I was talking to one of my clients last week about this, like, why do I like to do things that I'm not naturally that good at? Like the things that I'm gifted in, like I grew up playing the violin, and I was really good. I was first chair in my orchestras. I would do these, I could memorize stuff really easily. I'm a student of Suzuki, a student of the Suzuki method of the violin, and I was really good. But you guys, it wasn't like my cup of tea. It didn't give me that drive. And maybe because it just came easily. I mean, I still had to work really hard and practice, but I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be on the drill team. And I was not the best dancer, and I didn't make the drill team until my senior year of high school. I tried out for 3 years before I finally got on my final year. It's like, why do I do that to myself? So I'm like, that's something wrong with me. Like I like to do the stuff that's really challenging. That really pushes me out of my comfort zone. And competing, it's one of those where I'm not the most genetically gifted, and I'm okay with that. But I don't like it when other people like constantly remind me that I'm not either. I'm like, I know. I have a pretty level head with what with where I stand, but I still like I believe in myself. I'm the little engine that could. I'm the little engine that could. And I believe I'm not done. I'm not giving up on myself just yet. So here I am doing the peak week stuff and let's get back into the topic of peak week things. So I just told you all the things of like what not to do and what not to expect of your peak week. Peak week should be a time of dialing things in, of making sure that you are peaking for the show, that you are filling up those muscles in the way that you need to have a nice, tight, and full physique. Depending on, if you're in fit model, you're not looking for a lot of vascularity. You want more fullness in those muscles so that you're nice and full, maybe even a little bit softer looking. We're still trying to figure out the exact look of like what they're going for with fit model. And I think that we'll find out more next year once pros, like, so bikini pros that are switching to the fit model division, I think that's really going to make a big impact and really help us to get the idea of what the look is for fit model. So yeah, with fit model, you want that fuller, a little bit softer look. They're not looking for striations in the delts, not looking for hard glute ham tie-in, but they want some glute fullness, stuff like that. But bikini, like most, especially in the master's bikini, there's a lot more conditioning in the overall look. So you get lean, you get really lean. You've got some striations happening, and then you're filling out those muscles so you're not striated on the stage. You don't want to be up there and be able to see like all the little divisions of your delts. And when you are walking to the back in your back walk, when they do the comparisons to look at your glutes, you don't want to see a bunch of striations in your glutes. They want to see that fullness. That's why they have you walk to the back. So that's the whole point of peak week, is to get your body set up to look its all-time best come show day. And so typically too, when it comes to cardio, the cardio tapers down because you want to reduce inflammation and have a more recovered physique. What you will find too is like you'll start to sleep a little bit better. Usually my like best sleeps of like when looking at like the previous few weeks leading up to a show, like my peak week sleep is pretty top notch. And especially like the night before, it's so good. So I slept 10 hours at the night before my last show. I fell asleep at like 8:30 p.m. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to let myself sleep. It might have been 8, and I just slept, and it was beautiful. And so I was so recovered. And that sleep is so helpful because it helps with digestion. So when the morning of a show, you want to have a bowel movement. You want to make sure that you've been able to go to the bathroom. And so if you've been stressed out, or if you've had all these weird water and sodium and food manipulations, like introducing new foods into your diet or whatever throughout the week, that could mess with your digestion too. So it's just really nice to relax, get that good sleep. Make sure that the bowels are empty for show day so you feel nice and tight, and you get up there, bring in your all-time best. Not feeling hungry either, because you've been amply fed throughout your peaking, with making sure that the muscles are getting full. So ultimately, what does peak week mean? Well, as I started off this episode, it just is simply the week before the show. You are not going to see any magic happen, but you are going to, most likely your coach is going to pull back your cardio, if you're even doing any at that point, and they're going to methodically make sure that you are filling out in the appropriate way that you need to for the division that you're in, so that you are bringing your best look on the stage. And that's all you need. That's the magic. Maybe the magic is that there's not magic. Whoa. That there's not magic. Yeah, I just think it's been really cool over the years to do different methods from different coaches of peaking, and learn what works for me, learn what not to do. There's been plenty of that, because I've been able to take that and apply it to my clients when they have competed over the years. Most recently, I had my client Abby Bird. She went to, and I went with her to North American Championships, which is a pro qualifying show that's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that was last weekend. So she went out there to go for a pro card. Like, that was the goal. And at this North American Championships, they have both open divisions and masters divisions. So masters is considered anybody over the age of 35. Isn't that weird? 35-year-olds are masters, but that's the way that the NPC is and the IFBB. So she signed up for both the open class and the masters 35 class. And she had won the overall here in Utah. The head judge is an IFBB pro head judge that travels around the world doing shows all over the place. And he just happens to live here locally. So he will always do the local shows if he's available. And so he told us his feedback for Abby was, you've got plenty of muscle. You don't need to add more muscle. This is like the pinnacle of muscularity for the fit model division. So if anything, like, see if you can get a little bit more definition in your glutes. Want to see just a little bit more of the glute pop, but do that without trying to lose any size in your upper body. And so it was, it's fun feedback, because you take and respect the judge's feedback. You want to hear what they have to say about you, because they're there observing and making the judgment calls. But then you've got to apply what makes sense, and sometimes, push to the side other things that don't make a whole lot of sense. So we were like, okay, we're going to give this a shot. Worked She like cardio, like is just some steps for her. So she's just doing like 30 minutes of walking. And training wise, she really needed to pull back the training intensity. Not only so that we didn't push and for like not for building anymore, but also Abby has scoliosis. So she has, her back becomes an issue. And it happens quite frequently if she's pushing herself too much or she's too active, it will get really sore. It also makes it really hard for her when she poses and hits the back pose, for her to hold that. Like sometimes you'll see her shake a little bit because her back is hurting from holding that. So that's been like a whole struggle in and of itself. And so yeah, just her training was just really pulled back and dialed. And we brought a little bit more fullness for this national show last weekend. And you guys, she was straight up, like right away, put right off to the side, which is not a good thing when you are competing. You don't want to be pushed to the side. You want to be in the middle, because in the middle means the judges are looking at you. You're kind of like the standard for your class, and they're comparing you to other people, or they're comparing other people to you. And so they moved her right out, and I was like, dude, immediately I was thinking, compared to these other girls, she has too much muscle. And then she just naturally has a really conditioned core. And so even though like we had brought her in a little bit heavier, she still has this core and then just naturally this more muscle fullness compared to the other girls. And so the judge told her she had too much muscle, and he told her she was bikini, which absolutely, like there's potential for bikini if we were to lean her out like another 10, 12 pounds. But then what happens with that? You lose all that body fat, you get really lean for bikini, and there's no glutes. And she has great glute shape, and she's able to carry not only her muscularity, but her body fat in a way that it creates really nice shape. And so that's been like a thing that Abby's been deciding, like, what do I do? Like, do I listen to this feedback, or do I try to go to another pro qualifying show and see how I do in front of another set of judges in the fit model division, and maybe make a few little tweaks? Because we could make her appear less muscular, like by adjusting her posing, using some hair, coming in even a couple pounds even heavier from where we had her at this last show. So there's some little tweaks that we can do. And so that was a decision that is up to Abby. And so she's made some decisions, and we're looking to possibly move into hit up another pro qualifier and see what that does for her. So with her peaking, it's been really fun to watch how we just need to fill her out. And it's been a little bit more aggressive than what I would do for a bikini competitor, because we do just want to make sure she's full and we don't have a lot of hardness for the fit model division. And it's worked out where her physique has looked super good, but it just so happened for last week in Pittsburgh, it was not at all like. And the judge, he liked her. He was like, you just need to be in bikini. And so it just wasn't the look. And especially compared to the other girls, like all you can do as a competitor is control your look. Do your best with your coach to come in meeting the division criteria in the way that works for you, and then see who else shows up and what it is the judges are looking for. And then you just, go from there. At the end of the day, the sport is so objective. And so it can drive you a little bit insane when you're getting judge feedback. And I heard it the other day. I heard someone saying it's good to get the feedback, but you don't want to chase the feedback. So it's not like you get feedback and then you're trying to do exactly what they said for you to do. You be objective about that feedback and what makes sense based on what you want to try to do. And sometimes it is like it's going back to the drawing board, and it's like, oh, okay, like I'm going to attempt, like in Abby's case, attempt to move to bikini, now that means that it doesn't make sense to compete anymore. It's shutting it down, going into an improvement season, building out the glutes for maybe a year, year and a half, maybe, about that time frame, and then going into another contest prep to see what muscle has been put on during that time, and if it's gonna work so that you've got that booty pop in that back pose. You want to see those 3D glutes. So it's a fascinating thing with feedback and figuring out what you want to take from that, how to apply it for you, and how to move forward with that. And I can even speak for myself when it comes to judge feedback, that the last couple shows, because everybody's always like, well, what did the judges say? And so here is, I kind of get a kick out of this because Sandy Williamson judged Battle of the Bay in December, and then it was Dave H. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, who was a judge, and he's been a head judge at other shows I've been to, but he was a judge at Florida State Pro a couple weeks ago, and the head judge was Tim Gardner. And so got feedback from both those guys, and then with Sandy. So Sandy last year had said to me, you have really youthful skin for being a masters bikini competitor. And I was like, what do I do with that? And I'm like, are you just saying something nice to just like say something nice? And then she said, build out your glutes. You just need more glute density. That was her feedback for me. And so after this show, that Dave was like, you have really great skin quality for being a master's athlete. It's very youthful. And I'm like, oh my heck. And I said, this isn't you're the second judge that has said that to me. And I'm like, are you just trying to be nice? Because there's not a whole lot, obviously that's not working in my favor because I'm not getting placed higher because I have good skin. And so I said to Dave, I was like, so with this more youthful skin, should I do the open bikini? He was like, no. So anyway, it was just like something I had to giggle at. But so I mean, and then again, it was like, maybe adjust your posing a little bit, see if you can create more of an hourglass shape in your front pose, a little more glutes. So not a whole lot. And the same thing with Tim Gardner. Not a whole lot to work with, really, right? And so it's not about chasing the feedback. It's like, okay, we get that feedback, and then we look objectively too at the pictures, me up there with the other athletes, and figure out does this make sense to continue to move forward? And in this particular case for me, it was like my coach Paul was like, yeah, we're not done yet. We're not shutting down the season yet. Let's bring you in a little bit leaner. I think if we get you in leaner, you have more conditioning, that might be the look that the judges would be going for you. So let's give that a shot. And I've even said to Paul multiple times over the last couple months of if I'm fit model, I'm fine with that. Just let me know. And he's like, we're not going there yet. Not going there yet. We've got lots of muscle. Let's see how this goes. And so anyway, I think the fit model division is awesome. And maybe that's where I end up going for, or I don't know. So that's just my own judge feedback, and keeping in mind, we're not chasing the feedback, we're being objective. It's also really nice when you've got a coach that is very objective. That's not you trying to make all the decisions, because they can see the bigger picture. And when you're dieted and depleted down, sometimes your brain just isn't functioning as good as it would when you're not in a contest prep. So it's nice to have that group of people, or your coach, somebody to help you to assess and figure out what the next best steps are in your journey. So peak week things, pro qualifying shows, judge feedback, lots of fun things discussed in this episode. I just wanted to kind of go off what's been on my mind with this episode today and share with you some of those things. So I'm flying out. So today's Sunday. I'm flying out to Fort Lauderdale on Thursday, and I've got some fun things planned for Friday. I'm not gonna tell you guys. Normally, I don't gatekeep what's going on, but this involves somebody else who hasn't said anything yet. So I have to keep my lips sealed until they share, and then I can talk about it. But it's going to be super fun. I'm so excited. The show weekends are a celebration of your hard work. And it's really fun when you've got people to surround yourself with. Like my coach Paul will be there. I've got a roommate this time. I'm not going to be rooming by myself. We got some fun things that we're doing, and then we're even like planning out like our post show outfits for dinner, thinking about, oh, are we going to do steak, or should we do hamburger or burgers, or um, Mexican food? Just kind of thinking of those things. And it's not, here's another thing. Let's just quickly hit on this. When it comes to like the post show food, if you watch newer competitors, I would say more like newer competitors, they typically get super hyped up about treats and post show food. And I think that can come from a couple different reasons. It could be the way the coaches prepped them, where they haven't had opportunities for diet breaks or refeeds. And so they've been, in a sense, kind of neglected that like that opportunity to have more food, which would allow them to eat like an Oreo or things like that in their prep. And so they kind of become hyper fixated on these like really over the top foods. um but then also it's just this celebration of hard work too, and so it kind of makes it like you want to go and eat something fun. And I've never been extreme with that. It is fun to go out and eat, but it's not about stuffing myself. In fact, I'm usually not that hungry, although I will say at this last show, I ate a Chipotle bowl after prejudge, which is happens only if like coach says to. It's not something that I just do on my own. And then I had a Wendy's chicken burger at like 6 o'clock in the evening when we were driving from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale. And then when we got there, I had 3 tacos and then some cookie that I had brought with me in the hotel after that. And so it it made me full, but it didn't make me sick, but it still sounds like a lot. And I'll admit it. I don't eat like that all the time, but it was really fun. It was really fun. So, but yeah, with this show, I don't know what we're going to do or where we're going to go, but it's fun to eat out after the show is over. And then also the next day, if it's always fun to go out and have brunch if that happens to work out. And also depending on how close your next show is, like that's a big thing too, because for some people, they may need to get right back to their deficit macros if they're a couple weeks out from a show. And other people, they can have a little bit more leeway, so it's all different. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend, and I can't wait to share with you guys how it goes and what the experience is going to be like. So that's it for now. We out of here. Talk to you on the next episode.